What is going on, guys? It's Dakota from D. Caldwell Photography, and today we're going to be starting a new series on the channel where we'll be discussing and comparing budget lenses that are more than capable of getting the job done versus their $1,000 high-end counterpart. Today we'll be comparing the new Sony 50mm G Master f1.2 versus the Sony 50mm f1.8. We'll be conducting a series of tests like image quality, video autofocusing, and comparing the two on screen side by side just to see if you all see differences for yourself. I also want to just point out that this isn't some sort of high-end technical review, but more so of a quick comparison of these two lenses to give you an alternative from the higher end versions. So if you're looking for that high-end, super technical type of review, this video isn't going to be for you. But stick around if you want to see some real-world examples of how I use both of these lenses. Well, now that that's covered, let's hop right into the action, y'all. So the photos of Chandler in this video will be shot on the A7R III with both lenses, and the video footage that you'll see was recorded with the A7 III. I'm shooting wide open on both lenses to see how each of them perform. Since the G Master is an f1.2 lens, when using the f1.8 50, I needed to adjust my shutter speed to properly expose my shots. We are going to be starting off with the 50mm f1.8 lens. Now, my opinion, I've used this lens on full frame cameras, I've used this lens on crop sensor cameras. Overall, guys, this lens gives out amazing image quality for the price. I know there's usually a stigma attached to cheap lens price tags, meaning that if the lens is cheap, that it's not going to perform as good as some other lenses. But in terms of image quality for this 50mm f1.8 lens, $200, the images that you get out of it, they are pretty damn sharp. And again, this is an attractive price tag for a lot of first-time camera buyers. If you see a nifty 50 at a price tag of $200, and it's really good to have something to throw right on your kit, your first prime lens, and learn how to use it. Now, there are a few things associated with this lens that I am not a fan of for image quality, and that is just the slow focusing of this lens. Now, this lens does focus on a lot, but as long as you have patience, you'll finally get the shot and the images will look really nice. Another thing that I'm not a fan of on image quality for this lens is the chromatic aberration. Now, there is a lot of chromatic aberration associated with this lens, whether I'm shooting indoors, outdoors, it doesn't matter. There's always some sort of green or purple fringing associated with the photos that you're taking. But you can fix that easily by going into Photoshop or Lightroom or whatever post method that you use to edit your photos, and then just removing the chromatic aberration associated with the photo. So not a huge deal, but I just wish that I didn't have to deal with a bunch of fringing when using this lens. But for $200, I can't complain too much because, again, the image quality is really nice and you just kind of deal with the other things that come along with this lens, or just don't buy it. Wide open at f1.8, these images are extremely tack sharp. And I just want to point out that this plasticky little gem, the 50mm f1.8 from Sony, when you put this on like an A7 III or an A7R III, it feels like there's nothing attached to your camera body. That's how light this thing is. Now, in terms of video, you can use this lens for video, but I wouldn't recommend it. There's a lot of focus breathing, I like to joke and say focus heaving, that's associated with this lens because it is extremely loud and you can hear like the gears on the inside like grind a bit when it's trying to focus on something during video. Instead of filming sort of live or moving subjects, I find this lens to be a bit better when doing like a sit-down interview type of deal where the subjects are just in one place and there's not much movement other than like hand gestures. I'm not saying that you guys can't or shouldn't use this lens for video, but I am just bringing up some things that I've experienced when using this 50 f1.8 in the field for video in the past. Like, it gets better on newer camera bodies in terms of the focus breathing. So like on an A7R II, it probably wouldn't be as good as an A7R III or an A7 III. So just be mindful of the different things like the focus breathing and how it may impact maybe the audio of your video. I've been using the 50 G Master lens for about a month now or so, a little bit prior to me coming back to YouTube, and I was extremely surprised that one, Sony came out with a lens like this at an f1.2 aperture, because we all know, y'all, I love them wide open apertures. And just two, how awesome the 50 millimeter focal length is. I'm used to primarily shooting portraits on 85s and above, so it was a real nice change to switch it up to 50, especially with this new lens that just came out. For a $2,000 lens, of course you're going to assume the image quality is just spectacular. And with this lens, it absolutely is. I mean, wide open at f1.2, these are some gorgeous just images, gorgeous crisp images, and I am extremely happy and excited to be able to have used this lens for such a long time now, because I really want to buy a 50, preferably this 50 millimeter for my A7R3. For any of the shoots that I've used this 50 millimeter G Master lens in for the past month, I could not find any sort of chromatic aberration. Like, I really would have to zoom in to like 300% to see if there was any, and there really wasn't. That's the great part about this lens. I also just love the color rendering of this lens as well. In terms of video focusing for this lens, it is lightning fast. It snaps right onto your subject, whether they're moving, doing a quick pirouette, anything like that. It is lightning quick. In terms of low light, they both do perform in darker areas due to their lower apertures, the G Master at f1.2 and the budget Sony at f1.8. The f1.8 does take a little bit of extra time to focus in darker scenarios, but again, it's to be expected. It's the budget $200 option compared to the $2,000 f1.2 option, so not that big of a surprise there. So you guys can see for yourself what the bokeh balls look like. In the f1.2 G Master lens, there's 11 aperture blades rounded, and in the 50 f1.8, I believe there's 7 rounded aperture blades. So from that information, you could tell kind of the shape and how these bokeh balls are kind of really turning out. So let me know in the comments which ones you guys prefer. In all honesty, I'm not a huge like bokeh ball person. I love it in my photos, but I'm not like gonna examine to the T like the circular shape of the bokeh balls from the string lights we have hanging up in our backyard. So I like them both. That's just me personally. So overall, gang, like I mentioned earlier in the video multiple times, you're gonna get what you pay for. With the 50mm f1.8 lens, it's $200. Okay, and for $200 you get amazing images. For $200 you also get a lens that doesn't feel as professionally built as any of the G Master series, or even if we're going to the Zeiss 55. Or you may have some focus breathing or focus hunting issues when trying to lock onto your subject when using pictures or video. It just depends, guys. It's a trade-off, okay? So I just don't want us to fall into the trap that you have to go and buy that brand new spanking G Master f1.2 if you don't have to. The G Master f1.2 lens is in a league of its own, and I just don't want us to feel that you can't create awesome images with lenses that already exist within your budget just because something brand spanking new came out, okay? So I feel that a lot of us fall into that trap. We see our favorite YouTubers and photographers using these awesome, amazingly cool new lenses, and then we're like, dang, I can't create that same type of content because I don't own that lens. When in reality, there's tons of lenses that have existed prior to these brand new ones that have been getting the job done. You just have to know what you're doing, guys. So I just wanted to, again, start this series off by giving us a couple options that we can use instead of always having to feel that we need to jump straight to the brand new one. Now, I'm not going to sit up here in front to y'all like if somebody gave me the option to buy the G Master lens versus the f1.8, like I wasn't going to go straight to the G Master. I own the f1.8 lens. I sold it before because I didn't have a need for it. I bought it for my 6500 once upon a time, and then I rebought it when I had a full frame camera because it's just an awesome nifty 50 that, again, gets like pretty sharp images for the price. But I am eventually going to buy the G Master lens, the G Master 50. I've kind of fallen in love with the 50mm focal length since using this new lens, and eventually means whenever my wife approves it. So I gotta go sweet talk Kia. On that note, thank y'all so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this video. Let me know if you have any experience with using the 50mm G Master lens or the 50 f1.8 lens, and what are your thoughts on both. Make sure to click that thumbs up button as it tremendously helps my channel, and consider clicking that subscribe button so you don't miss any more upcoming content in the near future. Thanks again, and like I said, I'm gonna go sweet talk my wife, so I will catch y'all in the next video. Peace.